It's recording. Okay. Check. Okay, now a little bit from your furniture book. Um, so the all right. So just a few things about the let's so I guess some points to make here. Um, Fabrics for upholstery in the 16th century, so the 1500s, start to become more important. I mean, they really are like like similar to the way tapestries in the Middle Ages were more valuable, like more, they were better as valuables, like than like a painting on a panel because it was portable. The upholstery fabrics are just like bedding, things like bedding. They were often more important than wooden furnitures because they were harder to replace. Um, the author writes about this place, Hardwick Hall in uh, England, in Derbyshire, and then so this is like based on an inventory of this estate. Tapestries were probably the most important feature of the interior decoration. Um, this still, even like in the like this Renaissance era, the they didn't really have a lot of furnishings, and the really valuable stuff still had to be portable. And most homes were still like what we would consider to be underfurnished. Um, the author writes about the printing press. I mentioned this, that theoretical texts were available with illustrations, revival of classical knowledge, um, like the architectural um, proportions, motifs, and um, processes spread throughout Europe. Stylistic guides unified and homogenized designs during the Renaissance. It was really kind of like they wanted to do it the way the Romans did it, the way the Greeks and the Romans did it. Later on, when we get into what's the Baroque era, it starts to get more creative, like a more like creative departure from this. Um, so and let's see. So also like in furniture construction, um, the different types of like creating furniture, joinery, which is like some of the older, like the way um, we looked at this with the Egyptians, like the dovetail joint. Um, they become more. It's, I guess it's like a more sophisticated way to put it together. You see, like, remember some of the earlier like medieval furniture was pretty chunky, and I think really like very unsophisticated. I think the joinery allows it to become more sophisticated. Um, and we also saw, like in one of those slides last week, the panel and frame construction. So you have like a frame and then a panel that slides into the frame, um, so that the whole thing doesn't need to be made out of one big piece. That way you can do, like if you have carved panels, the carved panels can be made separately and then slid into the frame. Um, you have guilds, furniture guilds. They're really like trade guilds that compartmentalize, or just like they limit like certain aspects of the furniture craft. Um, this happened in a lot of manufacturing, where you'd have people who were turners that only their job was to make turned pieces of wood for furniture, like turned on a lathe. And a lathe, does anybody know what a lathe is? I'm going to show you. I have here in, oops, there we go. In the supplemental reading and web resources, it is a, let me check, it might be in here. Not in there. I really need to organize this better. No. Oh, you know what? I think it's in bow lathe. There it is. Old-fashioned bow lathe. Okay. So this is a guy who's doing this in the city of Marrakesh. You know, I think this was made later in the 20th century. But it's a handheld lathe that shows how you can use a lathe to create turned pieces of wood without a motor.
So is the lathe the tool he's using?
So that's a chisel. So a lathe is like that when you pin that into that structure to hold the
Oh,
other end, and the bow is turning it. So the bow is in place of a motor. And then the chisel he uses to create the different forms as it's being turned.
so the lathe essentially is the entire.
It's the lathe is that struck is the I guess the device that's holding the piece of wood
That metal piece?
so that it can be turned. It's like
Okay.
like if you see like a lathe, a modern lathe in a shop, it's a machine that has the pins that hold the wood in place.
Okay.
It allows you to
Thank
turn
you.
the wood and then like use the chisels to shape to like create to form the wood into a cylinder.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's talent right there.
I agree. Pretty
It is.
use of his feet.
Hmm?
The talent. That's very, I
Oh
said
yeah.
that's talent. It's very talent. A lot of talent. He's using his foot.
Got it. Why, yeah, why not use it? And I think the purpose of this video, you can see how, I mean, they would have used a similar, not necessarily like, sitting, like using their feet. They might have, but
the key for the chess. Okay.
you can see the sophistication you can get with simple, it's really like a simple device.
I wonder how many splinters he got. I'm sorry, I had to say it. I just.
He probably doesn't feel them anymore. I'm sure he gets splinters all the time.
Wow. It's amazing how he got that round shape.
There you go. Pretty cool, huh?
Very cool.
Yeah. So that's, I show you that because when you see turned wood before the Industrial Revolution, before there were motors, it was done in some way where you know, they might have used, I don't know, I mean, I'm not sure what other hand-driven um, lathes would have looked like, but something like that. Okay, so this is a portrait of a young man by the painter Bronzino, meant to show you a little bit of what contemporary, like a little bit of the contemporary interior looks like. There we go. And the Palazzo Medici. Anyone familiar with the Medici family? Ever hear the name Medici?
They commissioned a lot of museum, like houses and museums. So Da Vinci was one of the person they commissioned as well.
They were a very wealthy family in
Yeah.
Florence in this period of time. They were not the church, and they are they were very important as patrons of the arts and architecture. Um, and being a secular client, they were able to have more control over what the architects and artists would make. So it was, in a way, they allowed for more artistic freedom, you might say, than the church would have. So, not that they, I mean, this is still like they were all still very, very much within the Christian world, but I mean, it's a difference between the Middle Ages and the Renaissance or the modern era. That in the Middle Ages there were no really like private or secular clients to speak of. The church was who you made um, art for, and or like it had, or the church was there. So changes and like artistic growth and innovation was discouraged. It was a lot easier to encourage growth when you didn't have to follow those rules so closely. So this the Palazzo Medici, you can see this the lower stone surface is rougher. That's an example of rustication for that surface. And then the upper sections of it are smooth, have like much smoother stone. It gets smoother as you go up, and so it has this like heavy more like a rocky look to it on the ground level. But Roman, all that Roman like Roman arches, pediments, definitely Renaissance. So here's part of the cornice. The corbel is that little like projection. It's like that, I guess almost rectangular chunk, and it's not structural. It is it's decorative. You'll see corbels are still used in architecture and interiors. So you can see this like the big kind of like large egg and dart ornament right there. And then this like simpler, up along the top here, there's like a much simpler, it's almost Egyptian, not quite, but it has a much like just like a simpler look to it. Okay, plan view, here's the interior. So kind of like a Roman villa. Has this interior courtyard, which is like much, I guess it's bigger than a tradition, like a standard atrium in a Roman villa. So similar to those Renaissance churches, you see this arcade with the hey, Dennis is biting my foot. The Roman, these like semicircular arches, and the Roman looks kind of like a more like updated composite capital. Up there, that's out of place. Here, these are doors with Intarsia, the Ducal Palace in Urbino, 1464. Intarsia is this like the wood on this door. It is so Italian technique of decorative veneering, similar to marquetry, which is a French term, normally using small pieces of wood to create images or designs on a flat surface. So all of those pieces on those doors, each piece is cut out and fits together like a puzzle.
Are you talking about on the border of the door, or are you talking about on
I'm talking about the
Okay.
door itself, the wood.
the door itself? Okay, all right, thank
Yeah.
you.
The border looks like it's like a like it's the oh my God, my brain. It's carved plaster. There were different carving techniques that they used. One of the carving techniques in plaster was called Postilia. Postilia was paste. Oh, I'm sorry. It's coming up later. But the doors are the intarsia.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another room. The interior furnished with Savonarola chairs. This is a late medieval Renaissance design of chair, named for the as like a firebrand heretic monk named Savonarola. Tapestries, stucco work. Stucco is the door. Is that like the door frame?
Oh, got it.
Yeah. So carved plaster. Now we have in the 70s there was really trashy textured stucco walls, which was a nightmare. Like if it chipped, you just had to rebuild it. But stucco originally was really just a beautiful decorative technique of the Italians of the Renaissance. So different. You can see on that fireplace, it's like this little mini architecture with what look kind of like columns on either side, and a big classical entablature, which is the entire upper part of a temple. And then you can see the little amorini and the garland with this fruit and flowers wreath up above on the sort of hood over the fireplace. And there, some more of that. So you have this so a frieze, it's spelled Frieze, right here just above the fireplace. That classical story. Wow, don't do that. And then you have the garlands with the amorini, having some fun. And then here a cartouche with a family crest held up by the amorini. There's another interior. This is from around 1500. So much more, I guess, much richer in terms of its color with this gold. Really, that would be painted. So a lot of the surfaces painted. This sort of really the Savonarola chair with this sort of interlacing wood. This is there was a type of a bench, like a bench with a seat called a casapanca, and there's a smaller version of like a chair, which is really just this big piece of casework. There we go. A tapestry after Raphael, the miraculous draft of fishes. So ordered by Pope Leo X for the Sistine Chapel in 1515. And as you saw last week, the tremendous work done by the ladies of La Gobeline in France. So this would have been made in the same way. So in this you can see the like the ornament. This sort of braid ornament is called guilloche, another French term applied to something from an earlier era. This is kind of like monochrome image, which is really meant to look kind of like it's a relief sculpture. You know, all this illusionistic, it's all woven threads. And then you have the Greek meander down here, down at the bottom. So this is pretty complex, and you know the sophistication of the figures in this is quite good. Okay, here is a from Rome in the like 1550, I think that's what that is. A little screen with our pictures is blocking some of my view here. Again, this is trompe-l'oeil, the style of painting used to create. So I guess I should update this definition. It's meant to create the illusion of reality. It's meant to trick you into seeing depth and form where there is none. This hanging drapery, this draped fabric up here, this is painted on. If you look at, come on, there you go. So if you look at like where it goes up against the doorway, you can see that it's just painted flat on the wall. But it looks very realistic. It is like real enough, and you can see the way the light changes from one wall to the next. That just like shows you that it's meant to be illusionistic. And one of the reasons to do that, why not just attach drapery to it? Because now we know how to paint this, and they were showing off. Similar to the way gold threads were used in a tapestry to show off the wealth of the patron. Some of these, the perspective, the ability to create these very realistic scenes, that was valuable, and it was also very contemporary. And so it was a way to show off that you are modern, contemporary, that you know what's going on, you know you are in on the latest taste. These blue chairs down here, these are not from the Renaissance. Neither is the table lamp. Oh, okay. Oh, and this like lozenge, this like diamond, sort of like stretched out like diamond shape or rhombus. That as a geometric figure, that's something that is often associated with the Renaissance. So when you see this, like it's kind of like, when you look at this, sometimes you can look at some of these things and just like wonder, like, is this like which era does this come from? And seeing that lozenge or rhombus shape, that tells me Renaissance. Okay. Another Palazzo Sacchetti, Rome. So they start to get like bigger, like just as the churches get larger and more spectacular. Also these, the residences of the wealthy and ruling class also. Here, the Hall of Perspective. This is, I showed you this during when we looked at the Romans. These four columns and this like view to the exterior, all of that is illusionistic. You have to stand, if you're not standing in the right spot, it would look weird. But if you're standing in the right spot, then it looks as if the perspective of the painting lines up with the perspective of the architecture. Same thing on the right side. The right side looks a little like the right side, that right wall doesn't line up the way the left wall does in this view. But it was just like, this is like, this is like showing off what they could do. All right, more of that same interior. And here, one of my faves, oh, there's an interior of a painting of an Italian interior from A Dream of Saint Ursula. This bed with the valance up on a platform. Now this is a favorite. This is a tour de force of the intarsia technique. So these walls, the wooden wall, all that brown wooden color, that's all flat. And the wood is cut and stained, different types of wood to look light or dark depending, so that it looks like there's light on a three-dimensional surface. But all of this is all flat. This photograph is, this photograph is taken at like the right spot to see the perspective correctly on those walls. That little door, the cabinet door that's open, that is not open. That's just a flat surface. That's just meant to look like it's open. All right. So this grotesque, what is called grotesque decoration. These panels show. It's like this ornamental decorative work using incongruous human and animal figures with scrolls and garlands, vines, leaves, and flowers, also called arabesque. So you can see like there are some you can start to there's one on the right on the upper part, you see a face amongst the vines and other stuff in there. It's grotesque in this sense does not mean like ugly, weird, disturbing. It comes from the discovery of this kind of decorative painting in old Roman grottos, such as this Golden House of Nero in Rome, with this like similar kind of ornament, and you see in this the Logetta. Logetta is it's a hallway. That right side of this hallway is open to the outside. It is almost a completely closed, but the right side, those passageways, those are open to the exterior. This Raphael painted this and the artists of the day knew about this. Here's another Loggia by Raphael. So they like this is like much more. I mean, they knew like this stuff was old and worn and damaged, and they made it look cleaner, more contemporary. But it's the same. It's the same decorative motifs, the same visual vocabulary that the Romans were using in a lot of respects. So this with this like white field and the garland and the bird and a pot, like a potted plant, and then these little like inset medallions with scenes like the little playing Amorini. That's very cute. They're frolicking. A lot of fine detail in there. Beautiful. So here's some stucco. Furniture. That's what we're here for. A cassone is a cabinet, a large decorative Italian chest. I guess a chest. Sometimes called a marriage chest, decorated with carving, gilding, or inlay. There is a big cassone with the big lion's feet. This one has Sphinx holding it up in the corners, and this like cartouche in the center right here. It's this kind of like shield that sometimes would have, it was often used as a like almost like a like a like the center of a symmetrical design, or even like this is asymmetrical, but you can see like in this relief sculpture, I see Hercules on the left there. So there's some scenes from mythology. A casapanca, a carved bench with a seat or a top that opens for storage, sometimes with back and arms resembling a sofa, made entirely of wood. Heavy. A small writing, like a fall front little table cabinet. And really what looks like a very early influence of Chinese decorative techniques and color choices and imagery. I mean, the Italians were the first Europeans to get themselves over to Asia. Cupboard with grotesque decoration. And you can see how some of this sort of like turns into what we think of as grotesque. But originally it was really meant that it was ornament that was originally found in grottos. Right? An Italian cabinet with broken, so like the pediment. In the Renaissance they started messing around with the pediment. This instead of just a straight triangular pediment. I know there were like Michelangelo had a lot of drawings for different variations on the pediment, where like they did circular, like a semicircular pediment. They would do the broken pediment with like a notch cut out of it. This one is really like a pediment that's made out of two big scrolls, and you can see the urn finial. So like a finial is something like on the top. We saw this with the Gothic stuff. And this is meant to look like an old, like a Roman, like a funerary urn. Another more restrained cupboard, but still with the big, you see the big lion feet on the bottom of it. So here's a Savonarola chair. Savonarola was a radical Dominican friar of the 15th century who was put to death for openly defying the Roman Catholic Church. But this, the chair is associated with him, is really quite a beautiful chair. You see the way the wood in this curve crosses. You know, some chairs of this design, there are some others that are similar to it. Some folded, some didn't. That I think it's hard to tell. You know, some of this, like this, always looks like it wouldn't fold. Like it's got too many pieces that wouldn't really want to move because it's all solid pieces of wood. But it's really a beautiful design. There is a Sella, so not unrelated to something like the Sella. They knew what they were doing. A Scabello, a chair of this from the Italian chair from the 16th century. Like a light portable chair. And here is some actual upholstered furniture that survived from the 16th century. So you know, you can see the structure of the pieces are pretty simple. Just you know, like this, the stretcher down here is just a simple, like, you know, flat shape, you know, a flat piece of wood cut with a simple shape to it. Kind of meant to look like it was turned on a lathe, but it wasn't. That's just a flat piece of wood. And really, a lot of the special features of this are reserved for the upholstery. And here now we get some, this is a more spectacular canopy bed. You know, if you're wealthy, then you get this, like, you know, gorgeous canopy bed with your big cartouche up on top. Looks dangerous. Here, a trestle frame table. Trestle tables have just this like long piece going through the middle, holding the side supports together. It gets legs out of the way. And then there is a cartouche there in the side, like this bit in the center. This cartouche right there with the scroll coming off of it.
So is that cartouche supposed to like symbolize protection or what?
Often they would have carving in it that would be symbolic of the patron. Sometimes cartouches are empty, but it's not like an Egyptian cartouche is a little different.
Okay.
So it's more like it is really almost like it's a decorative plaque or shield. It's like the iron base on that table. And then here, one last, let's go back here. Trompe-l'oeil with an armchair. And similar to some of the other like Gothic paintings that show contemporary architecture telling a Christian story. This shows like a more like Italian Renaissance architecture, domestic architecture, telling the representing the Annunciation. And so you see this like the Renaissance ornament on really like on the pilasters, really all over the thing. Okay. All right. Any questions about this?
Are all of these terms in the what's the word I'm looking for? The
Vocabulary.
yeah.
So here,
Yes.
vocabulary section right here.
Yes. I was looking for blackboard. That's the word I was looking for.
Okay, yeah.
Because I'm writing them down as we go because it helps me remember them
Yeah.
as well.
A very good idea.
But I also want to make sure because sometimes you go quicker than I can finish writing.
Oh yeah. That is I guess it's a unavoidable feature of lecture.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to make sure that all of the vocabulary words were in Blackboard then. Okay.
I can like review those and make sure that they are.
Well, and I can also go back through the video.
Yes, and I recommend that you do. All right, it's going to take too long for that thing to stop.
No, that's fine. I just wanted